And welcome to the Dean Obeidallah Show. It is Thursday, February 26th. And today's again, You Are My Guest, the segment where you are the only guest. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., I'll have Frank Figluzzi on right here, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So come back at 2 p.m. tomorrow to listen to Frank. But today, I want to listen to you. And it's about a topic I'm very passionate about. I wrote about it this morning. I was so upset with it. I already had an article in the works for something about Ruben Martinez, but now we learned about more. To sum it up this way, simply, we learned that Department of Homeland Security agents killed two more people. That's what we learned. One's a U.S. citizen killed in March of last year, but they covered it up, and we just found out now this is actually the first U.S. citizen killed by ICE, and it was last March. And the second case is something making headlines today, and I want to start with the talk about it and get your reactions. That's about the man in Buffalo, Sha Alam. He's a 56-year-old Rohingya refugee living in Buffalo. He's blind. He doesn't speak English. He can't read English. He can't use a cell phone because he's blind and doesn't speak English. He has been in prison in Buffalo, in the Erie County prison since 2025. Now, according to his lawyer, it was due to a misunderstanding why he was in prison, in that he didn't have a walking cane. He bought a curtain rod from a hardware store to be his walking cane, and he stumbled on someone's property. They called the police, and the police had dropped the weapon. They thought it was a weapon. He didn't. They tased him. He doesn't understand English. So he's been in the Erie County prison for that up until now. Finally, a deal was reached where he could plead to a misdemeanor, be released with no jail time, and that would be the end of it. Now, and that would have been. He would have been released to his family, and he'd be alive today. But he's not alive today. He's dead today. And he's dead today because of Trump's Homeland DHS agents, specifically Custom Border Patrol. What happened in this case is that when they were releasing Mr. Alam, the Erie County sheriff, who was a Trumper, Republican official, his name is John Garcia, elected Republican. He spews the same Trump bullshit about immigrants, ginning up hate. Well, instead of just releasing Mr. Alam like he should have, instead he did a search and found out there was a hold on Alam by ICE, it's called a detainer. But there was a hold on him. So what did he do? He didn't release him. He calls ICE, which sends Customs Border Patrol to pick him up. It was a mistake because he is a refugee in the refugee program. There was no hold on him. There was no deportation order. In fact, when Customs Border Patrol took him, they checked it out and they realized we can't hold him. We're going to release him. And here's where the inhumanity of Donald Trump's regime comes into play. And what they did is they took him to a random coffee shop, a Tim Hortons, not where he lives, miles from where he lives, and dropped off this man who doesn't speak English, who is blind, who has no cell phone, who couldn't communicate with him. They let him alone walk out of the car in below freezing temperatures and then drove away. They didn't drop off at his house. In fact, their statement was, Customs Border Patrol, well, we dropped him off near is the word they used. I'll read their actual statement. We dropped him off near his last known address. That's what they said. Near? Why not at his last known address? Or better yet, why not call his family? Why not call his lawyer? You know he has a lawyer because he was just released as part of a plea deal from the Erie County prison, right? So they know he's got a lawyer. It would take 10 seconds to call his lawyer and say, hey, we've got your guy here. We're not deporting him. Everything's cleared up. Where do you want to drop him off? But they don't give a crap. Because they view migrants as inhuman. Why? Because of Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump has spent the last lifetime of ours, but the last year certainly, and during the campaign, dehumanizing migrants, especially brown and black. And this man is a brown man. Dehumanizing, plus coupled with telling DHS agents, ICE and CBP, you're above the law. You have absolute immunity. Trump has said that. J.D. Vance has said that. Stephen Miller said it. It's all lies. They don't have it. But if you keep telling them that, plus the people you're handling are not human beings, you don't give a crap about them. I mean, think about it. They could have called. They could have brought him back to Erie County Prison and said, hey, we actually don't have any reason to hold him. We're giving him back to you. Then the prison would have held him, contact his lawyer. His lawyer contacts the family. According to their son, Mr. Alam's son, said, nobody told me or my family or attorney where my dad was dropped off. So the father is not in prison. The family doesn't know where he is. They file a missing persons report with the police. The police begin looking, at least I hope they did. Sadly enough, Mr. Alam, body is discovered, turns up dead 5 days later. As of now, we have no idea where he was in that 5 days. They're beginning an investigation now, which is really important. But think about this. And here's the big thing I give you. Imagine dropping off a man who is blind, a man who can't speak English, a man who has no cell phone, a man who can't use a cell phone, and you drop him off at a random coffee shop by himself, not where he lives, not close to where he lives, within a few miles of it, and you just drive away. What kind of inhumanity is happening in our government right now that is acceptable behavior? That's okay. If he was discovered 3 days later and was alive, and I wish he was and not dead, this wouldn't even made press. But think about it. What else is CBP and ICE doing out there? What other inhumane acts are they doing? The depravity. Now, thankfully, New York elected officials are openly slamming this. The mayor of Buffalo, Sean Ryan, said, and I'll read his statement. It was really good. A vulnerable man, nearly blind, unable to speak English, was left alone on a cold winter night with no known attempt to leave him in a safe, secure location. That decision from U.S. Customs BP was unprofessional and inhumane. And better, the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, is demanding accountability. She said CBP released a blind father from custody and left him to find his way home alone. She adds, New Yorkers deserve answers and accountability. Absolutely. This is insane. If you've seen the pictures, it's going more viral now. It deserves so much more press coverage. So much more. The inhumanity, and again, there's two reasons for it. The nonstop dehumanization of migrants, of brown and black people, who are migrants especially, and telling CBP and ICE you're above the law. So that's what gets you in the cold weather to open your door and tell a guy, get out, and you point, because he doesn't speak English, and I can assure you they don't speak his language, just point at the coffee shop, go, and drive away. Think of that level of inhumanity. And then, here's a second case with a U.S. citizen, and we just learned about it in the last 2 weeks. And there's bad news in this case from yesterday that I'm going to share with you that just happened yesterday on this case. It's bad enough. March 2025. Yes, March 2025, a year ago, Ruben Ray Martinez, 23 years old, U.S. citizen, with his friend at South Padre Island in Texas, celebrating his birthday. He is shot and killed by ICE. Now, the public knew he was killed, but they were told he was killed by law enforcement. We only found out that ICE agents killed a U.S. citizen because of the American Oversight, which is a great organization, a watchdog. I've had some people on my show from them in the past. They do a Freedom of Information Act request about the killing, and they find out it was an ICE officer that fired the deadly shots. So let me tell you the story here. What happens is, on March 2025, they're celebrating his birthday. It's about 12:30 a.m. So he's been out. He's in the car with his friend Joshua Orta. And they come up to a place that it's not a checkpoint. There was a car accident. And local police and an ICE agent is working there because it was in connection with an immigration action. So we don't know if ICE caused the car accident by chasing someone, but that's not relevant. All we know is ICE agents and a bunch of cops tell Ruben Ray Martinez to stop his car. His friend Joshua Orta said he got very nervous. He didn't stop right away. He slowed down, and then the cops all drew their guns, and then he really got nervous. So he stopped, and both sides said he stopped. But then apparently, and this is from his friend Joshua Orta, that he got concerned about what he was seeing, and he may have moved a little bit, the car. So he may have. At this point, the ICE agent puts his gun in the driver's side and shoots him 3 times point blank, killing the driver. And after they shoot him, as Joshua talks about, they take his body out of the car and handcuff him on the street. They handcuff a dead man that they just executed on the street. Now, what makes this case so suspicious for me, and again, as a lawyer, as someone who used to prosecute people in municipal court in South Hackensack, New Jersey, and as someone with a brain, you don't need a law degree. Like, I know a lot of lawyers who've got no brains and they've got no common sense. Let me tell you about Ruben Ray Martinez. He just turned 23. He has no criminal record. He's a U.S. citizen. He works at Amazon. His mom said to the New York Times, he was a good kid, no criminal history, never got in trouble, was never violent. And what does ICE say? They shot him because he's used his car as a weapon to drive into officers trying to kill them. Sound familiar? That's what they said about Renee Good. That's their go-to lie. So in what world does a guy with no criminal record, who's a U.S. citizen, who's got a job, no history, not violent, and if you see a picture of him, it's in my articles, look at nice kids, a 23-year-old little kid, small, diminutive, drives into an officer to kill him? Again, common sense says no. And his friend in the car, Joshua Ort, disputed it. He said he didn't hit any officer. Here's the weird wrinkle in this. Joshua Ort, the witness in the car who went public and said his friend didn't hit anyone, guess what happened to him? He just died in a single car accident last week. A single car accident, no other cars involved, high speed, hits a utility pole and is killed. I don't like conspiracy theories, but this is suspicious. Now, I'm not saying ICE went out and killed him. That's a little weird to cover it up that way. But all I know is the only witness disputing ICE and the Texas Rangers, because the Texas Rangers were involved, is now dead. And again, that's completely true. That just happened last weekend. And here's the other development that's really troubling. Yesterday, Texas prosecutor went to a grand jury and made a presentation to potentially indict the ICE officer. What do you think the response was in Texas, where the prosecutor controls everything? No indictment. Look, again, as someone who's a lawyer, a prosecutor goes into the grand jury alone. They can show as little or as much evidence as they want. And there's nothing we can do. It's secret. I do not believe for a second that in the climate we live in, that a prosecutor in the MAGA state of Texas is going to go to a grand jury and lean into getting an indictment against an ICE officer. It's not going to happen. So now the family has zero accountability. He just turned 23, the kid, 5 days before. Everything to live for. Had a job, had friends, nice kid, people liked him. And now his mom is mourning his loss for a year. Coming the 1 year anniversary, and there'll be zero accountability, and ICE killed him. So that's the third U.S. citizen killed by ICE. Directly killed, shot by ICE. Alex Preddy, Renee Good, and Ruben Ray Martinez. And the fact that Ruben Ray Martinez, him and his family, especially his family, deserve more attention. It can't be that we just have outrage and sorrow if it's someone who's white and protesting and not brown. I'm not accusing anyone of doing that. I'm saying with the media, collectively, the corporate media doesn't feel this story is worthy of coverage. But this young guy who's Latino heritage, who's a U.S. citizen, should be alive today. Instead, his mom is mourning him. This sweet kid, as he would describe. So we've got that. And the reason these cases are connected, and it comes from the same place, dehumanize brown people, even U.S. citizens, who are white, who oppose the Trump regime. You dehumanize them by calling domestic terrorists and telling agents that they're above the law. And all of this is also why in 2025, we saw the most deaths of people in ICE custody in 2 decades. The most in 2 decades. Over 20, almost 30. And this year, one person has died in ICE custody each week of the year. So we're going to double the amount. And some of these cases demand investigation, and they're all related. And here's one I want to highlight because it's just getting press. Geraldo Lunas Campos, a Cuban migrant. He's a dad of 4, was in the ICE custody in Texas, in El Paso. He's there. He dies. What does ICE say? Oh, he killed himself. It was suicide. That's what they said. That's their new go-to. Another prisoner, they were a migrant, told the AP that he saw at least 5 guards holding down Mr. Campos. One of them put an arm around his neck until he went unconscious. And you might go, well, that's just one guy in prison, maybe trying to help the other. No. We now have the El Paso County medical examiner's autopsy. You want to know what the autopsy says? They say this is a homicide, not a suicide, a homicide. And why? Because his body showed signs of a struggle, including abrasions on his chest and knees. And they said his cause of death was asphyxia due to neck and torso compression. So you don't do a suicide. During a suicide, you don't have abrasions on your chest and your knees that are consistent with a struggle. That's what the ME found, the medical examiner found. Again, all of this, they're all the through line through all of this, from the death of the blind man, Sha Alam, to U.S. citizen Ruby Ray Martinez, to the suspicious death of Geraldo Lunas Campos, to ICE facilities now getting complaints of horrible food, undrinkable water, sewer backups, sanitation being unhealthy, and no health care. The commonality of all of this world that we live in is two, Donald Trump dehumanizing migrants to the fact that you don't view them as a human, like the way the Nazis dehumanized the Jews and anyone else they put in their camps, and tell people in ICE they're above the law. And that's the recipe for this. The ICE camps are no longer detention camps. They are now death camps. We have death camps on our soil. And that's where we are. So look, I went long, but I'm really passionate about this. This is, to me, this is our tax dollars killing our fellow Americans, killing migrants who are fathers and mothers and sisters in detention camps. And this demands far more attention than the BS of Donald Trump talking about Greenland and that kind of garbage. This is very real, and it's going to get worse because ICE is buying bigger detention camps. And as Andrea Pitzer on my radio show, an expert on concentration camps, laid out just a week and a half ago, it doesn't end with migrants in these massive camps they're building. History tells us it goes from those migrants to people like you and I, to those who stand up to Donald Trump. That's where we are as a nation. So let me read your comments for like 7 or 8 minutes, then I got to run to my day job. So I'm going to go back here and see what people think about this. Whatever your reaction is, again, this is You Are My Guest, where I do a little monologue, but I want to read for people your comments and what you're feeling. I know it's random. I'll go back sort of like the middle here and pick some. Dana Bennett says, get rid of Trump and ICE and Miller. Yes. Whenever it's abolish ICE, it must be abolish and prosecute ICE. Abolish DHS and prosecute DHS. Let's see. Chris Sampson says it's insane. I can't believe it's the United States of America. I can't believe I'm reading about our country in 2025 and 2026. And that's where we are as a country. Kira says it's horrifying. Dawn says they have no brain. They have no heart. They just love cruelty. This level of cruelty is anything. The level of cruelty we're seeing from the Trump regime and his ICE and CBP is really what you read about in other countries when there's a secret police that commit crimes against humanity. And I don't say that, I think everyone gets that. And I don't say it to scare anyone. We all get it. So, AJ North, there are two parts to the human dilemma. One is the belief that the end justifies the means. The other is the betrayal of the human spirit, the assertion of dogma that closes the mind and turns a nation, a civilization, into a regiment of ghosts. Obedient ghosts or tortured ghosts. That's in quotes, AJ. Who said that? That's good. Oh, okay. Dr. Jacob Brodowski, The Ascent of Man, 1973. Very interesting. Let's see what more we have. Kira says, I smell bullshit. I do too. Suspicious indeed. Sarah, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The other, I'm not sure here. Ralph Carbetta says the GOP is using this as another distraction to shift focus from their overt plan to rig the midterms. They do. They'll claim no accountability to these incidents, say sorry. Yep, all of this, very true. And the midterms are such a focus. I had Ellie Mastala on my show last night. We talked a lot about the midterms. I just posted on the YouTube channel for my show. You can Google YouTube Dean Obeidallah so you can watch the interview. I post maybe one interview a day from my 3-hour show. So that I think is a really important one. And that's really a wake-up call for a recent Supreme Court decision from 2 days ago on the post office. Why that's important for elections? They just give a green light to the postal workers to throw away your ballots. I wish I was kidding. I really wish I was kidding. All right, see what else we got here. The Dawn Duncan, I don't like conspiracies either, but when you said he died in a car crash, I thought Silkwood vibes. When Joshua Orden died in a single car accident, driving high speed into a utility pole, just days after giving a statement to the New York Times, countering what the Texas Rangers said and what I said. I have to wonder, and I want to see more in the investigation into that. And it could just be an accident. So I'm not suggesting it's not. I'm just saying common sense says ask questions. The same way after the 2024 election, a lot of us were saying there's something wrong here, and questions should be asked, and there should be recounts, and there should be some audits. And we were told, shut up because we're crazy. We weren't. Don't ever fight common sense. Listen to the common sense voice in all of your hearts and your heads. That's how you, on a jury, that's what you do to convict someone or not convict somebody, or find someone liable or not. It's all common sense. Let's see a few more people here. Where Don Becker, where is the Democratic leadership? Some are going to talk about this, I have no doubt. I mean, Governor Hochul And I'm not defending Democrats if you don't think they're effective enough. What I will say is corporate media sucks. So it means they're not going to give the voice to Democrats, which is not an excuse. If you're a member of Congress and you're getting paid nearly $200,000 a year, and this is your job, be creative to get your message out so it reaches people. Come on Substack, go on Midas Touch, have creative press conferences forcing the media to cover you, go to the detention centers, and some do. So don't get me wrong, some are. So again, I am at the point in my life, especially since we're just 6 months from the election, to amplify the good Democrats and stop slamming the bad ones, because I don't want to dampen anyone's spirit. We all got to come out. Primaries are happening right now. Vote for the fighters. I don't care if they're progressive fighters. I don't care if they're more centrist Democrats fighters. If they're fighters for our democracy, that's what we need right now. I'm very progressive. I want progressives, but ideology is secondary to fighters at this point, in my view. Let's see. Ron Foster says, "Hey, don't worry, Dean. Schumer will write a letter." Yes, he will write a letter. Yeah, AJ North is quoting from the famous pastor Martin Niemöller. First, they came for the communists. I did not speak out, and we all know how that goes. It's about speaking out. There's so much. Don Booker, Jesus Christ. I'm not sure where Don came in to the story, but there's a lot of Jesus Christ going on here. Hey, Kevin, Jen Champion, are you kidding me right now? The mail throwing away? No, I'm not, Jen. There is this week 5-4 decision. Clarence Thomas wrote the opinion, and maybe I'll do a talk on it because it's not getting the press it deserves. And me and Ellie talked about it yesterday, and what they said is that you can't sue the post office if they intentionally throw out your mail. And in the case, the reason the postal worker was throwing out the mail is because the person was black who was getting the mail, and the white racist postal worker didn't want to give the black landlord the person's mail. So you had intentional racism, and the Supreme Court, thanks to Clarence Thomas and 4 of the justices, said, that's fine, we can't sue the federal government, meaning there's no recourse. That was a real Supreme Court decision earlier this week. Real. 5-4. And it's concerning because now it means that a mail carrier can throw away your ballots, throw away all the ballots from urban areas where Democratic votes come in, and there's no recourse. Frightening. Yes. All right. A few more things, and I got to go do my day job again. Cammie, Larry Ellison's planning to buy CNN. This is bad. Yep. And they just upped their offer to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, and I think they're going to get it because Donald Trump is going to do everything he can to prevent Netflix from buying CNN. But in any event, the Netflix purchase offer, they didn't want CNN. CNN was still going to be spun off, so the Ellisons could have gotten it there. A few more. Let me go to the bottom here, and I'll go backwards. A few more people. Faux King Mofo says, I smell a revolution coming. If they steal this midterm, I think you're going to smell that. I agree. Dawn Duncan says, please do talk on the case. Maybe one day I will talk this week about it or on the weekend. A few more things. Yes, Dennis brings up Pete Hegseth, the extortion of Anthropic over AI usage and getting rid of safeties. There is so much to cover that are real substantive stories, from the post office Supreme Court decision to this one with the blind migrant that CBP just let out in the cold, to the U.S. citizen killed, to war with Iran. They try to overwhelm us. The only thing I can say is I pick and choose the stories that I have the most passion for and the ones that line up a lot with the legal basis because I'm a lawyer. Because if they have to do with comedy, I'm also a comedian, so I'll lean into those as well. There's too much to cover everything, but it is unreal what we're going through. All right, so I smell shakedown. Netflix CEO going to go off us today. Wow, unbelievable. All right, look, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I kept this short. I really appreciate everyone who joins us here. And tomorrow, again, 2 p.m. Eastern time, I'll be doing a live chat with Frank Figluzzi. Everyone likes Frank. Join us. We got a lot to cover. Maybe we'll talk about the post office case as well, because people don't know about it. Frank's also a lawyer. I think it's such an important case. But have a great day. I look forward to chat with all of you tomorrow. Hope you'll join at 2 o'clock tomorrow.